He stood in the prison courtyard, facing 5 rifles pointed at his chest. A government photographer stood nearby, ready to capture the moment they expected would break him. They offered him a blindfold. He refused it. He wanted to look his executioners in the eyes. He asked for a moment to pray, knelt on the ground, then rose, stretched his arms wide like a cross, a crucifix in one hand and a rosary in the other. Before the order to fire was given, he forgave the men about to kill him. Then he shouted the words that would outlive him. "Viva Cristo Rey! Long live Christ the King!" Moments later, he was dead. But the government's plan to crush a nation's faith with that photograph was about to backfire in a way no one expected. This is the story of Miguel Pro, a priest who spent his final years running from the law for the crime of celebrating Mass. It began in Mexico in the early 1900s. Miguel was born into a devout Catholic family, the kind of child known more for pranks and mischief than piety. But as a young man, he felt a call to the priesthood, and in 1911 he joined the Jesuits. At the time, Mexico's government had already begun turning against the Catholic Church, so Miguel left for Spain to continue his studies in safety. He was finally ordained a priest in Belgium in 1925. Then he made a decision that would cost him his life. He chose to go back. By the time he returned to Mexico, President Plutarco Calles had escalated the persecution into open war against the church. Priests were hunted, churches were shut down. Saying Mass in public was treated as a crime. Most clergy fled or went into hiding. Miguel Pro stayed, and he found a way to keep serving his people anyway. By day, he moved through Mexico City in disguise. Sometimes he dressed as a mechanic, sometimes as a beggar, sometimes in a suit, posing as a businessman. He used these disguises to slip past police and secret informants, moving from house to house to say Mass in secret, hear confessions, and deliver communion to Catholics who had no other way to receive the sacraments. He became known for his humor even under this pressure, often joking with the very people hiding him, saying that if he had to die, he might as well die laughing. But he knew exactly what he was risking every single day. In November 1927, a bomb was thrown at a car belonging to a former president of Mexico. It had nothing to do with Miguel Pro, but the car once belonged to one of his brothers, and that was enough for the government. Miguel and his 2 brothers were arrested. There was no trial. President Calles wanted an example, and he already had his target picked out. He ordered Miguel's execution, and he made sure a photographer would be there to record it, hoping the image of a broken, frightened priest would crush the resistance of Mexico's Catholics once and for all. That is not the photograph he got. The soldiers raised their rifles. Miguel Pro stood calm, arms open, forgiveness on his lips. When the first volley did not kill him, a soldier walked up and fired one final shot at close range. The photographs were printed on the front page of Mexico's newspapers the very next day, exactly as Calles had planned. But instead of fear, they produced the opposite. Thousands of Mexicans, defying the government's ban on public mourning, lined the streets as his body was carried to burial, honoring him as a martyr in open view of the same authorities who had killed him. Decades later, the Catholic Church would officially declare what the people of Mexico already believed. In 1988, Pope John Paul II beatified Miguel Pro, holding him up as an example of joy that no persecution could extinguish. The government that killed him wanted a photograph of fear. What they created instead was a symbol of courage that Mexican Catholics still carry with them today. A man hunted for the crime of serving God faced his own death, not with despair, but with forgiveness on his lips, and his arms spread wide, just like the Christ he had spent his whole life pointing others toward.